pacemaker?
The question asked of me is, what action did we take at Medtronic to promote the pacemaker in those very earliest days? How did we make it a very successful company? I think we did several things. One of them was to be sure that we promoted the use of pacing. We had a doctor in Buffalo by the name of Dr. Shardak, who was the one who put in the first pacemaker in 1960. And he was a rather bashful person, but he went around to every medical meeting that existed and talked about pacing and what it does for patients. Of course, back then the pacemakers were single-chamber, fixed-rate pacemakers running at 60 cycles, because he said he didn't want anybody to burn up their number of pulses in their heart too fast. He said each heart has only a given number of pulses, and he wanted them built at 60, not 72 or something like that. But he talked so much about pacing continually everywhere that he built pacing up as from an unknown action to pretty generally used by physicians everywhere. And that helped a lot. But we promoted well. We tried to call on doctors ourselves and talk about pacing. We did everything we could to measure the use of pacing. The A.D. Little Company had done a study saying the all-time market for pacemakers was 10,000 units. And we thought 10,000 units would be a pretty nice market for us in our garage. But we had to promote to get up to 10,000. But the interesting thing is that when we reached 10,000, the market was growing and kept growing, and is still growing today, which is an unusual thing for something to be marketable so many years and not have found a replacement. But we promote it through the meetings. Of course, NASPE now has become the Rhythm Society, based almost truly on pacing. And so it's really all of those methods we use for promoting the pacing field. The question asked of me was, how did we make Medtronic so positive and so interesting to engineers that they've come to work for Medtronic? I think there are several answers to that. One of them is that we give engineers a great deal of freedom in their work. We promote certain areas, of course, but we put special money into special programs that they may want to run. If they've got a special idea, we'll give them $50,000 to try the idea, and they can try it, and then we can see if we want to continue that as a company. And I think the mission of the company is so terribly important. We have a mission that talks about using your work to help the health of people, to restore life, extend life, or eliminate pain. And engineers, bioengineers, can feel very satisfied about working in a field where they know that their daily work is helping people be restored to life, to extended life, to reduced pain, or to restored health. And I think that really fulfills them. They don't look at the money, or of course they want good pay for what they're doing. They want to get rewarded well, and we reward bioengineers very well. But they want to get some fulfillment for what they're doing. And so we do several things to give them that fulfillment, to know that they're helping somebody. And every day now, or every hour that goes by, every 6 seconds, one of our devices is being used. Not all pacemakers, but pacemaker-like devices in the brain or stomach or incontinence or pain relief. We have many kinds of stimulators because the body is all electrical, and you can enter the body most any place and improve the electrical function. And so that's what we do. But to be able to help a patient every 6 seconds, and then we bring those patients in at the holiday season, 6 patients, to talk to all employees everywhere by teleconferencing about what their device means to their life. So the engineers that helped develop those devices had a part in seeing them and talked about how they're going to be promoted, and to help sell them at the booths and so forth. They get a great deal of satisfaction out of what they're doing. And with all the recognition they get, I think it makes Medtronic a very attractive place to work. The question asked was, how do we in leadership adjust the company to serve the customer? How can we best serve the customer, and how can our engineers have that attitude? And I think it's important because we at Medtronic put the customer first. We want everyone in the company to be aimed at the customer. When I do a new employee study, I tell everybody that that mission statement of helping patients is their mission. And I attempt to make the mission their mission for their personal work. So it's not just a corporate mission. And that's extremely important. And we then put the patients first, and as a company we put the employees second, and we put the stockholders third. And we tell stockholders that we're not there to maximize their investment. Our job is to help patients. And so the patients are the number one through the doctors, and then we take care of employees as best we can with all sorts of advantages working at Medtronic. And then the stockholders are third. And if we do well on the first one and somewhat on the second one, the third will take care of itself. We'll do well on the money if we look at putting most of our effort into a customer. The question was on ethics. How at Medtronic do we see ethics, and how does it work into our leadership? We didn't use the word ethics when we wrote the mission statement, because we wrote the mission statement in 1960, and ethics wasn't a popular word. In fact, mission statements weren't popular in 1960. But it's implicit in the mission statement, in each of the 6 mission statements, that we do things honestly, professionally, ethically, and in the correct order of doing the right thing, always doing what's proper in the country we're in. And that is so extremely important. We can't let anybody get by with doing anything that we feel is unethical. We had occasion once of a manager in Italy that we found was putting money into a bank account for doctors in Italy. And that's the way you do business in Italy. But it isn't the way Medtronic does business. So our head officer at the time, Bill George, fired him immediately without asking any questions or checking up. He fired him because it was an unethical maneuver. And I think companies are being looked at in very difficult days today when they're looking so bad from an ethical standpoint. And most managers of companies and leadership of companies is looking to maximize what the stockholders get. And that ends up in a lot of unethical procedures. And we want all of our people, all of our engineers, everyone at every level, to be extremely ethical in what they do. And they should have a copy of Bill George's book, Authentic Leadership, which speaks to the mission statement and mission-oriented companies, and how, as engineers, I suggest everyone look for a company to work for that has a good, positive mission statement, and one that essentially sets a company to an ethical, professional level. The question I've been asked is, what will be the basic skills that the students in biomedical engineering schools today should study to prepare them for their future in biomedical engineering? I think one of the answers is to study Chinese. I think that China is going to be one of the tremendous markets for biomedical engineering, China and India. And so that's one basic. I think another one is for students to read a great deal. Read what you have to for the classes, but read well beyond that. I take approximately 178 journals and magazines, and I read most of them. I don't read every article, but I do like the New Scientist from England. If you don't read the New Scientist, you ought to be reading that, because that's such a broad scientific level, and it comes out once a week. It's a great magazine. But I have 178 technical journals, and I scan most of them, but I surely don't read every article in them. I couldn't read every article in science if I tried, but I read some of the articles. But I think it's important for engineers to read broadly, because the broader you have, the more ideas you have in your head, and the more you can put things together to come up with answers for something you're trying to design. That first pacemaker that I designed back in 1960 was putting together several ideas that had occurred at that point in time. One was a metronome. I saw a circuit for a metronome using transistors. And I plagiarized that circuit, and new plastics had come out. 3M had a fairly good plastic for putting in the body. And batteries were pretty good, the mercury zinc batteries. And everything seemed to be coming together at one point in time, and that's when I built the pacemaker, because I had read about each of these. But I would encourage reading, and then as you think about devices, and as you learn about devices, don't look just how to put them together the way it's been done, but put them together differently. I like so much this expression of out of the box. At Medtronic, we actually have an out of the box award for devices that are developed that are different and offer something new in the way of thinking of the customer, the flow with the customer. And everything I've done in my life, if I look back on it, has been out of the box from the time I was a little kid up through this house, which is out of the box. There's nothing normal about it, though. Those are things that I think a bioengineer should study very, very thoroughly. The question is asked, what special experience can I talk about to the future engineers? What can they look to as they look about going into graduate degrees or into entrepreneurship or into research? And I feel that there are several important points about that may be a little bit different than you're thinking of. But I think one has to make decisions quickly. And I live by that ready, fire, aim. That first pacemaker I made was 4 weeks after Dr. Lillehei and I talked about having a battery backup on pacing, that I delivered a working model to the university, and they tried it on animals. And then, much to my chagrin, the next day I came by the university and they were using it on children, which was great. It was keeping the child alive, and it was a great feeling for me to feel that this was something we had made with our own hands, keeping this child alive. But the question then is, we put the quality into it. But the question came up about, what do we do next? How do we aim better? And we had knobs sticking out, which the little kids played with which isn't very good on a pacemaker. So we had to recess the knobs and make the pacemaker so the kids couldn't upset the setting or turn it off. But ready, fire, aim, and making the decision with your guts, which you might think is very strange, but I've often done that, has made gut decisions, or we call it na'au, thinking with your tummy, thinking with your gut, and making a quick decision, and then trying to figure it out with your head, because your head analyzes too much and covers too many steps. And so it's that quick decision, if it's right, the ready, fire, aim is very important to do things quickly. And because if you don't, somebody else will do ready, aim, 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 or you'll do ready, aim, aim, and somebody else will fire. So you've got to move quickly. I was just looking at that lately when I've recently been talking to our plant in Puerto Rico. That's just done 30 years since we've had a plant there in Puerto Rico, on the southern side of Puerto Rico. And that was a gut decision. I was with some of the other officers in Minneapolis, and we were talking about the tax relief one can get by having a plant in Puerto Rico. And we said, well, let's do it. So we decided to do it, and I went down there and looked at some buildings that the government was offering to put facilities in. And I ran into one in this northern side of Ponce in the hills. And it was being used as a barn. We had to push a cow out of the building and clean it up. And that was a 30,000 square foot plant. And we started there making leads for our devices. And that worked out well for several years, but we've grown so much that now we have a 120,000 square foot building across the street, building leads for our arrhythmia department, for CRM. So we've really grown, but started on a gut decision and making a quick decision that I like to think is ready, fire, aim. And I think that that's a way we have to think if you're going to be successful in entrepreneurship, is to be there before your competitors get there. To do right, but to look at what really is doing something for people. It's so important to be positive and thorough about what it's doing, but do it with quick action. I think that's a good motto to live by. Thank you, Dr. Lee. It's a pleasure receiving this award. And I'm so proud to be a bioengineer, because when I was growing up, I wondered if I would ever make it as an engineer. But I seem to have made it, at least people think so. They keep telling me so with awards of various kinds. And so I'm very thankful for this award from the BMS. That's a very great group to receive an award like this. So I thank you for being here, and I thank you for coming here and asking me questions rather than my having to go to Philadelphia at my age, 80 years and so forth. It gets a little harder to travel. It's not that I don't travel, but I do travel some. But I thank you for coming here. It made it a lot easier and a lot nicer. So we're very pleased, and we thank you very much, and mahalo anui loa, which is Hawaiian for thank you very much.